and welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. This is episode 67. I am Daragh, that is Shane.
Hello.
We are two Irish rugby fans, embracing and enjoying all things Rugby World Cup at the moment. The tournament is off to a flying start.
Yep.
We've had some truly dramatic games. It was a stacked opening weekend, and many narratives and pictures have been painted so far in the tournament. It was a great opening weekend. I thought that the Japanese fans have really embraced it. It's been really well attended. There seems to be a lot of colour and engagement all around, and what's more, we've got some great games as well. I've enjoyed the Japanese crowds themselves so far, insofar as in the action they're very reactive to moments. They really do get their rugby. They appreciate what the big moments are, and you can hear them being disappointed when they don't go the way of the attacking team and or the underdog, as the case may be, and vice versa, elated when they do go the right way. They're cheering on scrums.
The stadiums as well, I'm impressed with.
Stadiums are great,
separate, but also crowd note. I think like the Sapporo Dome looks class. That's a great little venue. And they really have embraced all things hosting a Rugby World Cup, and they're obviously reputedly a very hospitable people, and they were going viral last World Cup for like their fans picking up their rubbish after themselves.
They were again their home game in Russia. They were caught doing that as well, or caught doing it. They were seen doing that.
There's nothing thought about it.
And it's been an awesome week of rugby, but it's spearheaded mostly by matters on the field, which have been very, very dramatic. Obviously, we're going to touch on all of them in just a moment in the context of the show. We are going to recap everything that has been at this point. We are shooting this on Tuesday evening, so we just got a look at the Russia and Samoa game. Was the last game we would have seen. So we're just going to go back and take a brief look at what's happened and where we stand now, and then move on and preview all of the upcoming games for the week. In chronological order. So we are burying the lead in Wales. Australia is the big game this weekend in Tokyo on Sunday, but we will get to it. And we will have it in the description somewhere for you to click on where it is that we do talk about it.
And speaking of, if it's your first time here, please like and subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of some of the shorter vids we'll be posting upcoming as well. But also, leave a comment down below as well, because we enjoy hearing everyone's perspectives on it. And sure, the Rugby World Cup's happening now, so you can all chime in, and there's some good conversations and discussions to be had.
Absolutely. Okay, without any further ado, we're just going to look back more so than we have done on the opening week of the Rugby World Cup. Shooting this obviously on Tuesday evening, so we've seen a fair few of the games so far. The big
round
games,
one's totally in the books, and we technically today's game was the start of round two, I think.
That might be right. It was certainly today being Tuesday was the beginning of Russia's second round. Anyway, Samoa playing their first game. It was the first team that we've seen play two games. Half of their World Cup is over. But they've been good value for it, and they were good value on the opening day against a nervy Japan side. It was a very interesting start, wasn't it? It was like you could see how nerves were playing a part, and just that response from either team was kind of like Japan being the hosts with so much expectation, the fact that they play such a fast kind of style, you can see that when that goes wrong, like we've seen it a few times with Scotland even over the years, like when you try and play that quickly and you're feeling a bit of pressure and then it doesn't quite click, it can kind of unravel and snowball on you. And then conversely, Russia going in being written off by everyone, ourselves included, and it was like there was nothing really for them to lose at all, and as such they played above themselves for that first half and really did make it difficult for the Japanese, and kind of revealed a few weaknesses in Japan's game. Certainly the breakdown, the probing kicking game for one was paying dividends.
Paying immediate dividends. That very
fullback
that was a very, very bad play under the high ball. Not what you want to see a week out from an Ireland game as well, but they were dodgy in that area, but also just in resourcing of their offensive breakdown, they were a bit slack. And Russia's number 7 was what was his name again? Gadziev was awesome. My man of the match, but I know their 9 was great as well. And Matsushima obviously grabbing 3 tries is gonna
from Russia's point of view,
from Russia's point of view he was superb.
Well, it was one of the things is that we noticed Japan obviously were a little shaky when they get their offloading game going and their offensive game going. The tries that they score are beautiful. They run great angles. They manipulate the space very nicely. But it is dependent on speed, and it is dependent on offloads. And so what we saw the Boks do was wrap them up, stop the ball, and actually then we saw the Russians at a considerably lower level managed to execute something similar.
Yeah.
So it has the potential to become a theme for Japan's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But they ended up getting the job done with a hat-trick from the wonderful Matsushima.
Yeah, and a wonderful little 7 try in there in the rip and run.
Yes,
as it was half length of the pitch for a back rower. That's no mean feat.
Yes, and so that was a profitable opening day win for Japan and got the tournament off to a good start because it was an enjoyable game of footy.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it was to be overshadowed by Super Saturday, which kicked off with a good win for Australia in the end against Fiji.
Mm-hmm.
Not without controversy, obviously, with the high shot on Reece Hodge from Reece Hodge on Yato, who had been having a barnstorming game.
He was probably the most influential player on the paddock at that time, which is why the incident is as highlighted as it was. Like, he was try scorer, but also was winning every contact he was in, and he had just made that little probing break from that line out in that very play. That could have materialised into something else. You never know.
No question, he was on form, and Fiji's offence generally was getting...
Well, yeah, the other side of it with the instance with Hodge is that in the run-up to that, both wingers, Radradra had done it twice to him, and on the other side, Tuisova had sat him down on defence, like just sat him down. And it felt like a cheap shot in response to that. Like, just in the context of the game, what I was watching was Reece Hodge, who's one of the more physical, defensive-minded players in that back line, getting roughed up by the Fijians and just throwing a little bit back. Yeah, which is it was hard. It was unfortunate to see it overlooked
illegally. So, and it hasn't been now. It has been referred to the citing commissioner, and I think he has been cited.
It's no good for Fiji, though.
Well, it's no good for Fiji. It is what it is. But I think ultimately the narrative for them, they ended up being 15 on 15, and Australia went to where they go. They went to their line out drive and their scrum. Yeah, and the fact that they were so considerably ahead of where Fiji were at in that department, that it was kind of farcical. I thought Tolulatu at hooker had a great game, but generally they just kept it tight. Scotty CO again scrummaging really well. Yeah, and it's great for Australia that they have that place to go to where they can completely rough up a side, and worrying for Fiji that they couldn't deal with it at all. No, and while the opening half was very impressive, they caught a break with that breakout try for Nias Levu, but
and then shipped
27 consecutive points, and didn't really fire a bolt in it. I mean, every time that they conceded, they gave up cheap meters instantly and ended up defending again. Yeah, and Australia, through Will Genia, managed to get direction of their ship, get a proper world-class halfback on there to direct a very strong pack, and got it done in comprehensive fashion.
They do have the Indian sign over that Fiji team. It's been many decades since Fiji have beaten Australia, and it's just like they end up in a shootout and they can't match the set piece. Czech's set piece looks organised, though. He's brought the Wallabies here in sharp form.
Maul is great. They have that mauling game, and I'm telling you not to sleep on that scrum. It's a great scrum. Certainly their first choice is. But then obviously we have to move on. The second game of Super Saturday, France took on Argentina.
What a game this was.
This was
the game of the tournament so far for me. Yeah. Just in terms of having it all. Like obviously we were burying the lead. The All Blacks and Springboks played out a great contest as well. But this game, with it being so tight, the back and forth nature of it, we got to see a true French expression of rugby in the first half. Yeah. Then we got to see an equally true French representation of rugby in the second, when they went completely missing. And as well, we got to see Argentina really game for the fight and coming and actually challenging the set piece defense of France really efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
And then rattling them.
I thought Argentina were great in that second half. They went to their tight five. Guido Petty had an unbelievable performance.
He was awesome.
They did stand up to the physical challenge. We had gone in saying they weren't going to have a scrum. They turned their scrum completely around. Tate Shapiro looking like a completely different man. And Juan Fugallo rediscovering some of his form, and they scrummed really well. Yeah. So actually, I think while convenient, the narrative of France, they're one half good, one half bad, they're crazy. I actually think that narrative is a little simplistic, and it doesn't give Argentina their due credit. They came back into the game. They played really well, and France did have the cool head to get that drop goal to win it. But I must say that I thought there was a distinct possibility that this game might come down to a big Boop Buffeli kick, and that a few games in Argentina's future would come back to a big Boop Buffeli kick to win it. And I actually thought
missed it.
I thought they were their winning pictures. I thought big Boop Buffeli was going to step up and nail it. and just pulled across it, and those are the margins.
Yeah.
So tight.
It's hard to blame him because Sanchez missed 2 in similar fashion earlier in the game as well, which can't be overlooked.
I know, but that was the clutch moment that you really would have expected him to come on, and he played well in the game. That was an unfortunate one for him, and that was the margins. France got the breaks.
Yeah,
and you remember in 2018, the opening day of the Six Nations, Ireland got the break with that last minute drop goal against them, and their Six Nations went one way and Ireland's went another. So those are the small margins, and now France are really in the mix, looking good for a quarter-final.
They're looking good for a quarter-final, but just the way it stacks up for them in terms of their run in the group is pretty positive, like compared to what you're looking at with England, where their big games are the last 2 games, and then even if they win those 2, they have to go a sequence of tough games all the way to the final, whereas there's a bit more room for manoeuvring there for France now that they got over that first game.
Yeah, they don't play again until I think Thursday of next week.
Right.
So it's a long break for them.
Yeah.
Which was why it was amazing. It was the best day for fans. Both fans added such colour, and to see a load of French fans out for the first game when it would have been an easy one to miss for the rest of your group being so stacked.
Yeah,
it was just awesome to see. But unlucky for Argentina.
Definitely.
But France got it done in dramatic fashion.
Dramatic. One thing I would say, being able to bring on a halfback pairing of the caliber of Machino and Lopez
is what won it for them.
them. Like because Argentina, Sanchez played pretty poorly and they were scratching their head as a result of that, and it's like that. Those are small margins, but that was definitely an area of superiority. And then in the somewhat justice then that it was a lovely winning drop goal. And on day 2 of the World Cup as well, in
the last play when Argentina were having a go of it, it was Machino who executed the perfectly legal turnover. I mean, there were refereeing controversies which we'll touch on soon, but the clean out from Machino was perfectly fine, and he got the steal, and that was fair play, and he got the turnover,
big game moments.
So from your replacement halfbacks, they're super pairing to bring on, and Tomac going well as well. But we'll talk about France again when they're next playing. They are well in the mix.
Yes.
Then there was obviously the headliner of Super Saturday, All Blacks against the Springboks.
Yeah,
it lived up to the billing. It was suitably dramatic. There was an initial 20-minute surge of awesome Bok defence that really did stifle the All Blacks.
Yeah.
But as is a theme with the Boks, it didn't translate into a massive scoreboard pressure.
3-0 after that 20 minutes
3-0
was not enough, and the All Blacks reminding everyone about how they play the game, and it's a few big standouts. Like I thought Scott Barrett really impressed me.
Yeah.
In terms of he had to impress really because of his showings in the rugby championship. Really, that was that red card, and he probably felt he owed the jersey a little something, and he definitely delivered against what is this a really awesome pack. Yeah, it was a game played to the highest standard. Probably I wouldn't have it as highly or rated as highly as the game previously, just because the stakes were slightly different. Like
they were much lower.
When the Springboks, when it became evident that they weren't going to win the game, there wasn't that sense of desperation to try and pull it out of the fire that you would see if it were a quarterfinal or any kind of knockout game.
Totally.
As opposed to on the other game where everyone's throwing the kitchen sink at each other and it comes down to one last moment. But even with that being said, some of the accuracy of some of the play was to the highest level, and all through it was really high standard rugby from both sides throughout, and that's why even the drop goal, perfectly illustrative of the difference of context. Like the drop goal was probably a superior drop goal technically, but nowhere near the same kind of clutch moment that Lopez was showing.
Yes.
But I really loved the play, and it bamboozled the offense or the defense as well. Gave him Pollard all the time strike, pull left, pull back. Little kind of playful playing around with the pocket arrangement, and then a beautiful strike.
Yeah, it's something we'll probably see from the Boks as the tournament goes on. They will have little drop goal sets that are curious because they back Pollard to get them, and it is a good a good place to go vis-a-vis points for them. Which they're for all of their dominance, points are getting hard to come by.
Well, this is it, and
they need to. Well, we'll touch on them obviously when they're playing, but they do need to fix their offense. But actually having that drop goal ticking along for them will be useful points, especially if they're playing Ireland, and Ireland being such a disciplined team defensively. If the Boks are down there, like there's every chance that they're just not going to break them down or get a penalty. Maybe just chipping over those drop goals is going to be huge for them as it goes on.
Definitely.
But the All Blacks with that awesome performance, that great haka to start the game, which is I'm loving how well the Japanese are miking the hakas.
Yes, that's a good point as well. Yeah, because I actually think the anthems aren't as well mic'd.
No, well, we have, well, certainly from our coverage anyway, I'm not sure if people are editing it, but the crowd volume is too low and the player volume is ridiculous.
Yes.
But we don't need to hear it, boys.
Yeah.
But yeah, the All Blacks got off to a ripper and scored some awesome tries and looked sharp.
They did. Razor sharp. And yeah, really good balance to them. I thought their centres, which was untried in my head, but Crotty obviously awesome. Leonard Brown stepped up amazingly. Wonderful little touch and contribution for that Scott Barrett try, but also stepped up on defence and was like really just game for the fight. Really enjoyed that in him because he hasn't been the incumbent, but I've always liked Leonard Brown's hustle. I really like him from either 12 or 13, and that was a useful pairing that they have in there, obviously with people like Sonny Bill to still return.
He didn't look the sharpest, and he'll have a chance to get sharp.
He did make one or two very good. He made one in particular very big hit on defence that led to a turnover. That was pretty key at the time because it was like the Springboks did keep coming, which is something admirable about this Springbok team. But it just wasn't
they're
quite.
Way less brittle than they used to be.
They're way less brittle, but it felt like their attack in general was a little flat, and that started with Faf. Faf himself was a little looser than I remember him. That loose pass for
he wasn't great.
But also Villy then, and I'm talking their capacity to change things. Villy wasn't quite working.
Yeah, they have a few weeks to work it out, and we will touch on them in greater detail when we're talking about them.
Yeah, it just kind of colours. They both know where they're at now. That's what coming out of week one,
round one, New Zealand for sure. Yeah. We also had in the other game in that group, followed up on Sunday, Italy-Namibia, which was another really fun, class game, well supported by the Japanese fans. Great tries scored by both sides. Conor O'Shea was super frustrated with it post-match, but actually he needn't have been. Apart from a few Sergio Parisse errors, which are becoming a thing, Italy played quite well, and Namibia were good value for their 22 points.
I was encouraged.
Good tries.
The 3 tries they scored were all kind of worldies, and I'm very happy with that. They're both of their halfbacks look really good. They're
the two scrummies.
Like as in the ones that kind of came off the bench as well.
Yeah,
really quick. Love the tempo that they play with. Their hooker, obviously South African born.
What is your man's name?
He's awesome. Another
Torsten van
Jarnsveld. Another really dynamic hooker from South Africa.
Scrummy, the little lad Stevens who got the try was a class little halfback, and then there was the Techers of Yankees, the experience of Yankees to bring on, and he actually played really nice footy himself and managed them around the pitch cleverly. So they seem to have good hustle about them, and they're obviously getting ready for their cup final against Canada at the end of the pool.
It's unfortunate that they have to go through just have the Springboks and the All Blacks go through them for 2 weeks in a row prior to that cup final is a bit unfortunate. I would sooner see that happen sooner, but it does mean it's the last round and they have all to play for, and
they're going to
a side that's never won anything, and they look like they can play a bit of footy, and Canada haven't really impressed me all year. So
we'll see. Russia didn't impress, and then they showed up and did.
So we'll see what Canada look like when they take the field, which they haven't yet.
Absolutely. And then we had the big match on Sunday, which was Ireland getting it done as we suspected they would in dominant fashion against Scotland. Their forwards were primed. They were sort of building off that last warm-up performance. Kept a very, very, very solid game all around, but basically just won it up front with the heft of their pack, playing accurate football. And then Murray and Sexton, Murray in particular being in great form in that second half, managing us through the wet rain and getting a comfortable win against a Scotland side that were getting beat up, looked shocked by the conditions, and
looked
floundered.
Really bad. I was surprised by Scotland. We like big fans of Scotland. We were paying them due deference in thinking that there's a proper threat here, and this was definitely the most threatening fixture of Ireland's group campaign, and is going to remain that way. Now the rest of the group looks much more positive seeing that one through. But I was shocked at just the look of some of the Scots, and it was like typified even by Barkley being throwing up after like 30 minutes of play, and he's caught throwing up on camera, and you're going, wow, they really are shocked. And people like McAnally was soft in every contact that he was in. He was going backwards through the tackle. They were really, it surprised me because I thought they would come with a lot more hustle. And Richie as well.
Richie wasn't playing.
Johnny Gray even.
It was
a weak showing from the Scots, who had been talking a big game. And obviously they were surprised by that physicality. Ireland did get in Finn Russell's face and shut him down through the 12 channel a lot. It was Bundy Aki before he went off because of a massive hit on Finn, and then Chris Farrell came in and did the same thing for the rest of the 80 minutes.
Yeah.
And similarly out wide, I think Gary Ringrose did a good job of shutting down Stewie Hogg a few times, trying to get just cut off the outside for him, and then suddenly Scotland became quite rudderless as soon as that happened. There just wasn't quite enough. Also, things like that, their centre partnership wasn't the one that had been in the warm-up games, and probably isn't their main one.
Indeed, and we'll talk about Scotland obviously in the context of the Samoa preview a bit more, but they didn't look good, and Ireland got it done in good fashion and themselves.
Tee up the rest of the pool rather nicely.
They did. It was definitely a pleasant performance for Ireland fans. Not one to get carried away with, but solid, and reveals basically where the two sides are at vis-a-vis World Cup chances and expectations. That was followed up by a really physical game between England and Tonga.
It's true.
The Tongans didn't have much beyond physicality, but they did bring a bit of it. They went for a couple of 3-pointers and got one of them. And
Sibitao was good.
Sibitao was good. They were good value for
that big hit on Billy Vunipola was one of the highlights that was so far from that number 7. It was awesome.
It was a great hit, but ultimately England were really, really inaccurate and still managed to lock up 35 points and. Yeah.
They left a lot out there. Left a lot of points out there. We were quite enjoying it, like watching the England side just like fail to execute very simple attacking.
Looked like they were nearly not going to get the try bonus point.
Yeah, although it always felt inevitable that they would, and they did. But they'll be slightly frustrated with that, the fact that they weren't as accurate as they probably ought to have been, and they'll be looking to get that right now. Obviously, they still escaped with the full amount of points that they would want from that in such a tight pool, and they did get to rotate a few players, try a few different things. They played a little bit of the match with Ford Farrell, and then they changed that halfway through, so you can kind of reveal a little bit of what they're thinking going forward. But they have a game against the US now that
they're not looking to peak. They're not looking to peak at this time. So it was one to get out of the way for England without any injuries, and they managed that despite the Tongans' best efforts.
Bringing some big hits,
But the big hits are admirable. It was a fun game to watch from that perspective, but the Tongans couldn't really use the ball, and it wasn't a case of England putting an enormous amount of pressure on them. They just didn't do much with it. So it was good and bad to watch, really. And likewise, from a Tier 2 point of view, Wales-Georgia, which followed the following day, was a bit of a disappointment from Georgia's perspective.
Tier 1 v Tier 2 all over it, wasn't it?
They were blitzed in the opening 20, and then they did play very well in the second half. But Wales, really, the main story from that attack looking sharp, Josh Adams looking sharp, clever little set piece moves that I don't know if Stephen Jones can take credit for. Probably were in the bank.
Be watching them from home going, I know that move.
Maybe.
Yeah,
but their backline was striking very nicely off first phase. It was just a case of doing some very simple homework on a pretty weak defence.
Yeah, and then particularly off line out, they were defending that gap between 10 and forwards was covered by a front row Nariashvili, and they isolated that twice and executed very quickly in it. Similarly, they sat down a lot on Hadley Parks throughout the whole game. Their centres were not really aware of some of the other threats. The Georgian hustle on defence annoys me because once they warm up into a game, they're actually formidable enough, and they showed some of that in the second half against what is a quality Wales team. But it was just a bit disappointing. It was interesting that it was the Six Nations champs against the Rugby Europe champs. And that was the difference. So that's what I mean. Tier 1 v Tier 2, and it was unfortunate for Georgia that Wales started so well. But from Gatlin's perspective, that's a wonderful start.
It is
potentially dangerous opponent.
It was a dangerous opponent. Sidestepped. They stood up in the scrum. They'll be for the most part, but they'll be satisfied. They'll be satisfied to have gotten through it, despite the fact that Georgia did give them a good game and got some credit in the bank with their very decent second half performance. But that was that game. It was a lot of fun as well. And then obviously this morning, obviously shooting this on Tuesday, this morning we had Russia against Samoa. A fun game as well. The Russians stood up.
Again, for the first half. They were leading at half-time, 6-5.
They were.
Could have been playing against 10 or 14 or men.
Indeed, the Russians got very lucky with a couple of decisions.
The Samoans, you mean?
The Samoans got really lucky with a couple of decisions. Then Samoa kicked on, did very nicely. Leo was looking very sharp.
When their attack gets going, Samoa can be very nice. Like, they have some wonderful backs out there that can really execute when playing some of that attacking rugby. But they do like front football to do it. And there is still a little bit of looseness there that Russia were definitely capitalising on. Russia have been have acquitted themselves really well through these first 2 rounds.
Daragh at scrum half and Gadchev at open side flanker in particular have been very impressive in both games.
Yeah.
But they were very impressive right up until inevitably with a 3-day turnaround or 3 rest days they gassed.
Yeah, they're already at a deficit fitness wise in terms of the level that they're playing at, and then to couple that with a turnaround like that, and the humidity is what it is. It was never going to be a lasting performance. So even when it was 6-5 to them at half time, you felt like that's probably not enough.
Indeed. There was just one other note in general, is that World Rugby have issued a state critiquing the refereeing.
Yes, that happened today.
There have been a few refereeing errors that people have been looking to. Obviously people weren't Desma wasn't thrilled with refereeing of the offside line, which has just been,
that's the theme of all throughout.
What would frustrate you about it is just that it is randomly picked up on occasion, like crucially to award the All Blacks a penalty way back in a phase after the Boks had put some pressure on. It's like, oh no, you're offside. And it's like, well, everyone's always offside. And
it's like, not to say they weren't offside, because they were.
Oh, I'm sure they were. Absolutely.
They jumped early, and I think that they are more inclined to ping the ones where one guy does visibly jump early and not retreat. Those are the ones that tend to get pinged. But that's brushing over the fact that like the whole everyone's like around a foot at least offside at every breakdown, and it's just not being policed.
Louis Picamole obviously shot offside in that Argentina game, and he wasn't picked up.
and picked up an intercept in the same phase, and it was like, hang on, lads.
That was a big moment, and that went France's way, and that was something that irked Ledesma. And then obviously we've had the high tackles, which we assumed going into the tournament had been made clear, and yet it seems from my point of view...
The guidelines are gone.
Well, from my point of view... No, they're talking about the guidelines, but they seem to have just used the cop-out of the dipping mitigation to just mean, like, if they're not, a pencil bullet upright with full posture, then they're dipping, so it's not a red card. For my money, the 3 incidents, Reece Hodge, Ray Lilo, and the Samoan hooker whose name escapes me.
Which was probably the worst of all 3.
It was the worst of all 3. Matu.
Yeah. Both of those Samoan hits came on Artemiev as well, by the way. The Russian fullback, poor lad.
He played really well and is a great character. But those are the 3 dead set red cards that refs have sort of bottled, making the decision and sort of half-arsely. Well, actually, they just missed the first one on Reece Hodge. And then the other 2, Poit just sort of bottled and came up with some lame mitigation excuse and gave the wrong decision. And it prevented us from seeing what is one of the more interesting pictures, which is when an overwhelming favourite goes down to 14 men in one of these games
and has to dig it out.
It
would have galvanised the Russian. I'd say the Russians would have had a little bit more energy in that second half, just because of that.
Fiji against Australia. So that picture, one of the avenues for an underdog success, has been sort of robbed of them in the opening weekend. So hopefully they start officiating the offside line and just be more consistent and stick to the guidelines on the high tackles.
What was grievous sad about the Fiji one was the fact that they lost Yato. Yato failed the HIA, couldn't come back on, and he had been in absolute barnstorming form, and it's that, as well as like whatever about 14 men v 15 men, if a hit like that goes in and the net result is that Fiji lose their star player and there's no repercussions for Australia, that's horrible. And that's not what you want to see at all.
And while I think that Australia, with their 27-point run, are going to win that game anyway, just because they have such an advantage in that Type 5 area, I think that it's definitely a shame, and it's robbed Fiji of giving it a real go with their best players on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. But I suppose with that we'll probably move on.
Well, we just wanted to mention in the end of that in the end of that opening week, it has taken its injury toll on some players. We've had Trevor Nikanye, who is a really classy player who had been playing really, really well, defending magnificently. He makes 1 million tackles off the bench.
Scrums on either side.
He was great value for being on the bench, keeping Vincent Koch out of the 23 for South Africa. He's gone, injured, replaced by Thomas du Toit.
And out for the World Cup.
And I'm absolutely gutted for him because he's in the form of his life.
I know, And Razzie was putting a lot of faith in him, like rightly so, because he's the man covering both sides, and as well as being the benchman. I didn't realise he would be the guy straight in off the bench, but there he was, and it's a real shame. But this is what does happen when you have, the World Cup is underway, and that was a rather intense fixture. You had to be at a level, and it's just unfortunate that he was the guy who had to fall by the wayside.
Corey Allen didn't recover from his injury pre-tournament. He's been replaced by Bradley Davis. for Wales, that is, of course, in the lock. Ali Price, who had been in great form himself, is gone now for Scotland. He picked up an injury, replaced by Henry Pyrgos. And Hamish Watson on field in that Ireland game, which really couldn't have gone worse for the Scots. Is gone himself.
He's gone for the World Cup.
Did his leg in, and he was one of their guys. Like he was one of our players to watch.
He was, and even in that game, he was the only Scot who was potentially dangerous on their defensive breakdown and making. He was a nuisance. He was becoming, because obviously with Barkley not being at the races, seemingly it was down to the mish, as it were, and that's just really unfortunate because we really love watching that guy play. And it opens the door because like he would have been a scourge against Japan, and it's they're missing a massive asset in him.
They have brought in Magnus Bradbury to replace him.
Who is also an exciting player, different player, but an exciting player.
And then finally, obviously, Amosa, the number 8 for Samoa. We are yet to have an update on him, but he was stretchered off in that game this afternoon, and that's obviously not good news for them as well. He's one of their big players.
He's a barnstormer and good carrier of a ball.
So it's just worth noting the extent to which rugby takes its toll on players in this modern game.
Yeah, 4-day turnaround in humidity is a dangerous game to be playing.
And, and 5 guys down, and hopefully no more. Although I dare say it's inevitable that there'll be more.
Yeah,
and wishing all of those guys the best on their recovery, and just good for them obviously because they're missing out on the World Cup. Okay. So, we will pivot on.
Okay, well that was round 1 and it's in the books and it has a few interesting pictures, Italy fans will want to be taking a picture of their pool table as it stands as they sit on top for now. But yeah, we'll move on because there are so many games to get through, and I suppose we'll start with these other games that we probably won't go into huge detail about, but are also happening.
Well, tomorrow at Wednesday, this is going to be going on. Fiji versus Uruguay. By the time any of you will have seen this game will have already happened, and we'll have had our first look at both. We obviously can't really preview it because you guys will have already seen it. Although we are expecting a massive Fiji win. The last time the sides met, Fiji beat them last November, 68 points to 7.
Yeah.
So that's huge. Uruguay though will be looking to see what they look like. They like to play a nice flowy Argentinian style game.
So they like to run the ball. They have some dangerous quick wingers. It could be the makings of a good tri-fest. If they can do like Namibia do and pull off a few worldies of their own, then it could be a colourful contest.
Italy against Canada. This is an interesting game in the sense that Italy would want to get out of the way before there being 2 back-to-back cup final games. Canada, obviously, everything's thrown up by how good Russia were. Maybe pre-World Cup form doesn't matter at all. It's just about getting things right. And Lord knows Canada have the potential to get things right. They have a lot of talent. DTH Van der Merwe, for one, is a really, really classy player, and maybe, just maybe, they'll give Italy similar problems to what Namibia did for them.
Well, this is it. We're looking at obviously Russia starting and outdoing themselves and outdoing expectation. Canada we've seen more of than Namibia either, and we've seen them this year. They've been very unimpressive, but the World Cup is a different animal, and you'll see teams playing above themselves in the World Cup. And it's obviously like it's their first time out, whereas Italy have had a game, so the turnaround will affect them and the short turnaround that it is. But that being said, I think Italy are superior to Canada across the board, and it will show. I think over the course of this tournament we'll see levels of the game revealed, which is something we've been saying as well. And in this pool, it's no better illustration of that because Italy are a few rungs above both Canada and Namibia. We're unsure as to whether who's the better of Canada and Namibia, and that will be a compelling fixture itself, but Italy will probably put Canada away and will have very little hope against either the Springboks or the All Blacks, because that's another few levels above them.
And we are yet to see the tournament debut of Campagnaro and of Sebastian Negri. So they have got a couple of other big game players to come in, and Minozzi started on the bench last week. Chances are he'll start this week on the starting 15, and so their Conor trees mixing it up nicely, and they're hopefully going to be top of the pool again.
This is it. 2 weeks in, they'll still be top of that pool. That'll be a successful enough World Cup for them already.
Indeed. But then, as we're getting into into the real games and the real meat of this round, starts with one of the big tournament contenders, England, taking on the USA Eagles this coming Thursday, 11:45 a.m. Irish time. This is at Hanazono Rugby Stadium in Osaka, and will be refereed by Nick Berry. England obviously started with a stutter, but ultimately saw off Tonga.
A vague stutter,
And the Eagles themselves have yet to start. Can they put up a better showing? Can the Eagles?
They can definitely put up a better showing than Tonga as far as fitness and organisation is concerned. Like we know that as a tier 2 side, what they brought to the PNC was that bit more structured game, bit of a physical game. They like their set piece, love their offensive maul. Their hooker is their top try scorer, and he's awesome. But a lot of them are maul tries, but also he's a game breaker himself.
He'll peel off.
He's a pretty excellent runner of the
carrier.
football. He's got running back material all over him, really, isn't he? And they have some exciting, like Aj McGinty is obviously exposed to a lot of Premiership rugby, playing for Sale these days, and playing with Faf de Klerk. He's got a lot of experience. They have quite a balanced, settled side. The question mark and what I fear is that everything they're trying to do, England are a team that put emphasis on those areas as well and do them better. Yeah. But with the England team that has been named, it's more of a chop and change. It's kind of like your midweek game. They have 2 massive fixtures coming up in the context of their pool with Argentina and France. So they're obviously rotating out a few of their lads, trying to not risk them getting broke up in advance.
Billy Vunipola isn't one of them.
Although Billy Vunipola isn't one of those who's getting that treatment. And to be fair, like you were making the point, he wasn't as effective against Tonga as he was against Ireland in Twickenham. He's had a serious run of games, and a bit of rest
working the energy out of him.
Yeah, might do him a bit of good. But we don't know. We may look sensational against the US. You don't know. But the US are definitely trying to bring a physical game. They're quite a big team.
I would say they have some proper units. Like we're going to be not shocked by the physicality. Joe Taufete'e for one at hooker, very skilled guy. But even Ben Landry in the second row isn't to be messed with. He wins like in the PNC. He was just routinely in both carry and defence, winning just about every contact he was presented with for the whole tournament. Yeah. And obviously England being a step up, but he can front up. Yeah. Cam Dolan is the other guy who I would shout out to that back row.
He gets some plays off from 8, isn't it?
Number 8. Very fine player. I'm a fan anyway of Cam Dolan's, and I would hope to see him get some plays off if things are to go well for the US. And Paul Asike in at 12 is a really physical guy. Yeah. So he's not going to be shocked by anything. Certainly the England Pierce Francis and Jonathan Joseph, he's not going to be shocked by that. There isn't a Tuolagi.
Maybe if there was a Tuolagi there, that might, but because that shocks everyone.
It does. It does. But I do like the team. I think there's a lovely balance to it. Like it fits. Mm-hmm. You know, you have the sevens lad Yosefo on the left wing, and then Blaine Scully, real fundamentals man, on the right wing. With Will Hooley at fullback, who obviously is a question mark. I'd like to see him.
I'm not a huge Hooley fan.
Certainly not from what I've seen. He will need to play well, because it is an avenue for success. Though, is those box kicks from Davis at 9 for America, for the US. Mm-hmm. If they can get those accurate, Blaine Scully can win them, and that's an avenue up the field. But I think for the most part, they will be balanced. They will be using the boot of Aj McGinty. Mm-hmm. Who is one of himself and Taufete'e and actually Mike Teo, the winger, off the bench. Those 3 guys can look really world class on their day, and they're going to need them all to be at their best. But when they are at the best, they're actually quite tricky.
They're quite a cohesive team. They caused Japan some problems, although they ultimately fell short in that game. In the PNC earlier on this year.
But they have their men back. They have Taufete'e and Mike Teo makes a big impact. This is their full team. It's got a lovely balance to it.
We just don't know how they will look yet, because obviously the World Cup, the first game of the World Cup has gone so many of either ways for different teams. We've seen obviously like Scotland not hit the ground running. We've seen Japan stutter, and we've seen Russia stand up amazingly in the first halves, and Fiji as well. Like we've seen interesting. So that's what the question mark with the US is. Obviously, with all that said, and then there are avenues. Like there's an avenue for an upset, same as any game, and the US are better placed than most tier 2 sides to put it up to, especially if the team, as England have named, are chop and changed, and maybe if they're lacking a bit of cohesion, there are avenues into the game. But it's still unlikely that that they stick with this England team, especially just. Like they have the bench that England have named. They have the resources of like Farrell to go on should it be going wrong. They will outmatch them and outlast them, I think. But I would like to see the first half be competitive and combative and close. And I think like the England, if they aren't as settled or cohesive, and if the US can win a few collisions in key time.
Exactly. That's what England are going to be looking to do, is be crisp, be accurate, dominate those contacts. Mm-hmm. But it is a chopped team. It is 10 changes. It isn't their strongest team. They are missing some big blowers, and one of the big blowers on the pitch, Billy Vunipola, probably needs a rest. Mm-hmm. So I can't get the picture out of my head, the romantic picture, and maybe I guess we'll find out how accurate it is. But just assessing the sides against each other, I can't get the picture that the US are actually in this a little bit, and that this is going to be a fun one that might not, maybe if not go the distance, go close to the distance.
Interesting. I would love that. We'd love to see a bit more of that in this tournament.
We're sort of waiting on the tier 2 sides to hit the ground. Obviously, I was very disappointed by Georgia, but the signs were there that was the Georgia we were going to see.
Yeah.
And then obviously Fiji not coping at all with the Aussie Tide 5. You know, Japan stuttering, and it remains to be seen how well they'll go against tier 1. It has not been a great start for the tier 2 side, certainly not for the chances of something similar to the Brighton game last time out.
Those years ago, yes. But
the US, they're well structured, they're well coached, they have a load of experience, they're all professional, they all know the game inside and out, they have one or two really, really classy players. Great line out maul, great drive, line out and scrum. If they can hold all that up, if Lamasatele can stick to Joe Marler, I think that they have the avenue to stick with England and not be caught. But a huge amount of it is dependent, as is often the case with these tier 2 sides, about just defence. Just defence. If they can live with the pace that England bring and live with the physicality that England bring, and that's the big if. If England are on song and they bring the likes of something similar to that Twickenham performance, and we talk about changes, but George Cruz and Joe Launchbury is a serious lock partnership, and Tom Curry's still in there.
Yes.
If England go around the corner are just getting that level of physicality going, their offloading game, and then you get accurate George Ford instead of shite George Ford, you don't really know which is going to turn up.
Well, yes, and when he's accurate, then they have Jonathan Joseph in that centre partnership. If he gets a bit of space, he can be devastating in the width. Yeah, it's that speed, and like you're looking for line speed from the US, which is why first game out they may get shocked. Yeah, and I still think the more likely thing is that that England kind of walk away with this somewhat stuttering, but also the game not quite being flowing.
Ever in the balance. Usually ahead, like the Wales game in the second half.
Similar enough to that. That'll be disappointing from the US if their defence gets picked apart the same way Georgia's did off first phase. Yeah, because
that's where a guy. First of all, Adge is he's not a superstar, but he's your standard. He plays for Sale. He makes his tackles and he knows how to read a defence at 10. And then there's Lasike at 12 is going to be a really key man for them. You've Brash in, who sometimes plays at the wing. But Lasike is the leader of that defence, and he's a big unit. Like, he doesn't go backwards in collisions either side of the ball.
Yeah.
And he's up against Piers Francis, who is not the best English centre in their squad.
No.
So if that's the picture that they can paint, getting on top of them, getting that he needs to get out of the line and lead that line speed, then there's avenues for the US to make a game of it. But it remains to be seen. It will need big plays from their playmakers, Taufate, Aj McGinty, and then when he comes on, Mikey Teo on the wing is a guy who excites me. So we'll see. We'll see. Chances are an England win.
Well, yeah, the other side of the rotating squad is that these guys are pushing to try and get into the main matchday squad with 2 big tests coming up. So you'll have the likes of Piers Francis or the likes of Joseph trying to make a name for themselves in that centre. Even if they feel they can't dislodge the guys above them, they'll be trying their darndest to do so. Same with the wings. The wings is pretty competitive too, so they'll be looking for tries. And England have a history against when they know fully that they are the superior team, they tend to reflect that on the scoreboard. They don't tend to stutter or struggle as much as Ireland can do, and even Wales have done in the past. England tend to put these teams away. So we're looking for some US success, and we'll be curious to see how they go. But I'm expecting a pretty routine England win.
Fair enough. There's just a weird, probably illogical part of me that seems to expect the Americans to do something this game.
Rugby romance. It's no bad thing.
It must be. I just keep looking at it and going, I don't know. I think the US could do something. Maybe that is nonsense. Anyway, we're going to move on to Argentina v Tonga. There's a day off on Friday. This game is on Saturday. 5:45 a.m. the wonderful crack of dawn in Ireland.
It'll be tough now to get me up for that one. That may be a recording job.
I will get up for it. I'll get up for it. It is on Saturday 5:45, Hanazono Rugby Stadium, Osaka, to be refereed by the great Jaco Piper. That's just what the refereeing panel has been missing, is some of that assured consistency that Mr. Piper brings. Joy.
I think you picked up on the sarcasm in that. Yes.
Anyway, Argentina, Tonga for me, they stood up physically. They did put some big hits in. If Argentina,
their scrum stood up, which was interesting.
I mean, I did expect it to. I mean, you try and move Ben Temifuna. Actually, their scrum started to fade a little when he went off. You talk about locking down a scrum. Offensive scrums target tight heads. You can't move the man.
Yeah.
You just can't. He gets a very good position on him, and he's just so damn heavy, and he's so squat that it's just no, you can't move him. Of course, this scrum stood up.
Yes.
But they don't drive through scrums. So even if Argentina are stuttery, I suspect they'll lock down the scrum. And just looking at that Tongan team and looking at the amount of errors that England made
and how wide Argentina like to attack.
Yeah,
they're going to move them around, and Tonga don't like to be moved around.
No.
It's more the fact, like, I think Tonga, when they get their hands on the Argentinians, will probably win more context than they lose in that context, but they won't like chasing them. They'll be chasing shadows, and then by the 60th minute they will be completely gassed.
And even so, man, you've got an Argentina team who are chewing at the bit after what happened at the weekend. There are some guys in great form, Pablo Matera, Guido Petty. Those guys aren't going to be going backwards in contacts. Unless obviously they get lined up like Billy V did. But for the most part, I suspect they're going to move it around and find tries, and I haven't seen Tonga show
they just can't use the ball. Tries. Yeah, that's it. Like when
they get into your 22, they have pick and go and pick and go and pick and go,
which can be effective.
That can work against Argentina. Yeah. Maybe that's the picture of their tries in this game, but I think Argentina's offense to have way too much for Tonga.
I think even the word try is plural in the context of Tonga is probably a bit generous or a bit optimistic.
Maybe to break the record set by Italy for most points in a match. 47 Argentina in this one, or will England have broken it already
against the US? Maybe
not though.
Maybe not. Yeah, Argentina will be fancying their chances of attacking, and I think this matchup is pretty bad for Tonga. So yeah, maybe there could be a 50 or 60 pointer on the cards.
Seems odd that Italy hold it for the time being.
It's fun though.
Italy, points racked up.
Yeah, Italy the top point scorers for the time being in the tournament. That's fun.
Argentina to come back with a massive win against Tonga. I would
expect so. Yeah.
Then on Saturday, that one merely a curtain raiser for the big dramatic massive game that obviously we are very invested in. Japan against Ireland is this coming Saturday, 8:15 a.m. Irish time. That is in Shizuoka Stadium, Ikopa, 50,000 seater.
Awesome.
In Shizuoka, one of the hotter and more humid parts of Japan, I'm led to believe.
And Angus Gardner reffing, who likes a fast, flowy game of rugby, so he does.
Yeah, it's like they've manipulated. It is hilarious. Like maybe I'm being conspiratorial, but there definitely seems to be an element of Japan manipulating this to give them as good, like working every intangible in their favour to give them as good a chance of qualifying as they can conceivably have.
It's in the more muggy part of the country where it's going to be hotter and stickier. It's reffed by a guy who likes to keep it fast and open and maybe not be as harsh on the breakdowns.
They've got the perfect wait time. They've obviously got a couple of extra days on Ireland, and for the Scotland game, it's almost piss take. They've got like a 10-day rest in period where Scotland have like a 5-day turnaround. So I mean, listen, they're doing their best to make a quarterfinal anyway. From that point of view. Whether they can cope with Ireland is a different question. Now, Japan are very impressive. They're one of my favourite teams in world rugby. I love everything about how they play the game, how fast and how just pure their attacking sense is. Like the catch pass is phenomenal from all their players, and they really appreciate where the space is and seem to have an appreciation of just like, you don't run at bodies, you run at gaps. Yes. I love that principle because Ireland sometimes are just the reverse of that. Like sometimes that's just the case. You break the bodies and then walk over their corpses to the try line. Yeah, exactly. That's the Irish approach. That's our approach, and that may be enough for this Japan side because looking at what we did to Scotland, and we know Scotland are capable of being physical, certainly capable of being more physical than they were on the weekend just gone. But they did seem to have the conditions affecting them quite a bit. They did, and I would expect Japan to not be as phased by that, obviously, given that it's, if anything, they'll have the edge. Yes, in that intangible. But and similar to what I've prefaced every Japan game with, particularly the Springbok one earlier, if Ireland are in it, or if it's close at all after the first quarter, it's already game over. I don't really see Japan living with that Ireland physicality for any length of time. What their winning conditions are is catching Ireland a little cold, a little detached, a little loose, and scoring like 3 tries in the first 20 minutes. Getting the ball out of the contact and moving it from side of the pitch to side of the pitch and catching the Irish cold. Exactly right. It has the dual effect because it is when Japan like to strike, and Ireland really when they go behind early, tend not to cope with it.
Yeah.
Where when they're ahead on the scoreboard, really regardless of what's going on, they tend to have cool heads about them.
Yeah.
And when they go behind is when they get desperate and when they start losing their focus and discipline and doing bad things.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is Japan's winning conditions for sure. And there is a danger to it. I think a lot will depend on whether Ireland can do what both Russia and South Africa have done to Japan and just trap that ball on the contact.
Yeah. Make rooks.
Yeah, against Fiji, they were sort of going wide. The play was getting sort of shut down. They were going into contact and then just turning around, popping it right back. Before there was a ruck, the scrummy was there and we were away again.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of thing that they loved to do. And when there were rucks, it was quick present, quick pass, we're out of here.
Yeah.
They want to avoid that contact area. So Ireland holding players up, forming mauls, failing that, just falling on the wrong side and getting one guy in and then moving out so you don't get pinned, but still slowing everything up and making everything messy, as Gadjev did to that Japanese offense in the first half.
Almost single-handedly, he was in every breakdown and making a real... They really didn't... That was like... They should expect that, that was what disappointed me most in that first half. Whatever about the high ball floundering and the kind of nerves and general jitters that were on display in that first 20 minutes from Japan against Russia was kind of to be... Well, like once I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, that I could have seen that coming, I guess, because it's like it's day one, you're hosting the World Cup, and it's like everyone's watching you, and then suddenly some howlers come out of you, and it's like that's to be expected. But more of a systems error whereby they just... Because they're looking for that offload game, when the rucks happen, they're very slow to resource them. And maybe that's just because I'm used to watching Ireland, who are probably the most focused on resourcing offensive breakdowns, so I know what it looks like when it's done really well. But Japan are very laissez-faire on that, and they were letting that Russian seven run roughshot all over them. For the whole first half, really, they really didn't adjust or deal with it at all.
Yeah.
And Ireland are going to double down on that tactic in particular. Like they will be throwing... If that's to be the case, that'll be a field day for the likes of Josh van der Fleer.
Peter O'Mahony is
great nuisance in there.
Tyke Byrne, I would love to see Tyke Byrne.
I would deploy Tyke Byrne in there because he didn't get the game time he probably deserved for due to that yellow card, that somewhat dubious yellow card. In the Scotland game. So he's one I would be throwing in there against the Japanese. Like as far as Ireland's winning conditions are concerned, there are probably a few more of them than for Japan. Ireland are on balance a much superior side and can win this in various different ways.
We are to infer that there will be some significant changes. It's doubtful, I think, that Peter O'Mahony, Johnny Sexton or Robbie Henshaw will feature.
Yes.
So it opens the door for the likes of the informed Chris Farrell. The question is, I think Ireland will try to do up front to Japan a job, like a real job, like they did on Scotland. Have like a nice bit of variation, nice lovely quick sharp passing from both halfbacks, putting the guys into the right channels, but then having the bulk of the workload be done by ball carriers and occasionally getting working, the likes of Chris Farrell into the centre. Bundyaki is another guy who might not feature this week because of his concussion. He's
still got a bit of a shiner as well on his head. I was seeing a tip on him, so he may be due for a week off anyway. It's fine.
Yeah. But working the likes of Chris Farrell and then working just hard carry.
Most of it off 9, because I think that is a recipe to break this Japan side. Like we saw, played them there a couple of years ago, and the likes of Gary Ringworth, but also similarly Jack Conan around the fringes was a monster in Japan 2 years ago. They couldn't really handle his kind of dynamic ball carrying coupled with that physicality. So I'm expecting something similar. A lot off 9, both centres and back rowers, and then a few just their tight 5. Being put into contact after contact with them, hold the ball for as long as we can, as long as it takes to score a try, and try and milk some of their penalties and just exert that control.
The early margins are going to be really crucial. I mean, Ireland, they looked last week. I mean, they had moved away from it in the recent warm-up games, but they went straight back to the box kick, the Murray box kick, that worked really well for them, especially in the latter half of the game when it rained. They worked their way down the pitch very nicely by just winning the kicking game slowly and surely against the Scots all the way to a bonus point try. But if the kicks go a little loose, you are kicking to a very, very dangerous back three. Especially like if Japan can get Kenki Fukuoka back,
that would be nice.
That's insane danger.
As good, and I thought Lemeki did quite well in his absence in his stead, but he's not as awesome or as whereas Matsushima was showing all the legit skills and star quality that he had last week. Fukuoka is like as good on the other wing. When they're both there, that's what they have on either wing. It just means all tries can be converted. And then when Tamura had a very poor showing in the first game, I'd expect his head to be screwed back on for this one. I think he did appreciate the challenge of what Ireland are going to bring, and they're going to rely on his kicking game to try and get them into the right areas as well. So Ireland need to be ready in the backfield to defuse that. But Japan defensively, from their back three point of view, yes, they can counter off loose kicks, but don't expect too many of them. I think Ireland will probably kick for contestables and kick for height a bit more, and they'll want to get their just fielding of the high ball to a much higher standard than it was against Russia,
and then get their counter-attack going. I mean, the battle between sort of the Murray, I believe Carberry will probably play Murray-Carberry dynamic, and Tomorrow's kicking game is going to be fascinating. And the winner of that dynamic in the early parts of the game is going to be who gets to colour what goes on and where the game is played, which could be crucial because early scores for either side could make this game one of two very different ways.
Sure, but
there are avenues for Japanese.
There are definitely
Ireland shouldn't be taking it for granted. The weather is a huge factor.
Yeah, well, it's like both of these sides will want to be playing with a very different tempo from each other. So you'll be able to see who's getting on top of it, judging just by how quick that game is. A lot of the time, like if it's fast and loose, and suddenly Ireland are throwing reckless offloads that aren't really in their game, then you know that the Japanese are getting to them, and they're starting to set their own pace in the game. But if it becomes a bit more bludgeoning and slow, expect Ireland to take it, and that's kind of what I expect. So
indeed, and from Ireland's perspective, they can get a very quick game going themselves, but it needs to be the more controlled pace. Like their offense does need to have more avenues to it, but it's a little more along the lines of what you saw Chris Farrell do when he came on against the Scots, punching holes through the middle, getting the odd offload or flick away when it's on, running decent tracking lines, not doing mad things. And then the other thing is just, the picture in my head that's still there is of the Australian tight five running through the Fijian tight five, and Ireland's tight five is better, comfortably better than the Australian. Even if they pick a few different players, they'll be stronger even than what Australia were showing, and whether the tier 2 side can cope with that at all, the rolling maul, if Ireland can get it going, or an offensive scrum.
Fiji are probably a more physical side than Japan anyway.
Maybe less technical.
Less technical, sure. Surely, their scrummaging is nowhere near the technical scrummaging that Japan bring, and that'll be Japan. I expect will withstand our scrum for the first 20 minutes, maybe first half.
Depends,
but they will break eventually.
They were bullish about Cian Healy, saying he doesn't often scrummage legally, which is true when he goes to deck. Cian Healy sometimes has a habit of going to deck and being down and then pushing himself back up and actually getting an edge on. But for the most part, he does with any loose head. He tries sort of straight but up and in, and gets the better of most tight heads just through sheer strength. And then
I'm not sure we'll start Cian.
That was my point.
I think we're still going to go with Kilcoyne.
All of those mind games, we could throw Kilcoyne at them, who is like the hungriest man in Ireland right now. He's attacking everything, and he will attack the scrum. He is not for locking things
also
down.
In the loose, they won't live with him. He's like on defence, he shoots up. He brings awesome line speed on defence, but then on the other side of the ball, he carries ferociously. So I do foresee our tight five dominance being the telling story in this game.
But do look out for that first 20 minutes because the weather is massive, and if the likes of Kilcoyne aren't at that same physical or aggressive level, the weather could be a reason why, and that could be a serious factor. Like if they're just moving slower, there'll be all the more chance for Japan to get on top. But yes, we would be hoping and expecting the Ireland train to continue to stay on the tracks for the time being.
Exactly. Keep rolling on.
Yes,
that's the plan
indeed.
for it.
Indeed. That is followed by, bizarrely, the headliner of the day. It's at Saturday at 10:45am in city of Toyota Stadium, refereed by Matthew Raynell. South Africa against Namibia. I mean,
this is a game that is happening.
Look out for Spoon Kosi. Look out for Gallant at fullback. I think both of those guys are going to play, and I think there might be some space open, certainly in the 23, because the Boks need to do something different than what they're doing with their backline. So
and
there might be on their bench, and what they can do to their backline in terms of bringing it on. I think Frans Steyn didn't even feature last weekend. And Jesse Creel is just he actually played really well.
He played really well, but
maybe if you keep him there, but you got to have an outside back in there. And
I think Jesse Creel, I wouldn't have minded him putting in the performance he did in the outside back channel. That was my point. My last week, the glaring problem for me in their back line was Villy Leroux. That was what was screaming at me when there were 20 minutes left and they needed to try and win the game. It was like haul Villy out of there, throw Cheslin at fullback, throw Jesse Creel on the wing, keep Am in there because he shuts everything down. And he's also the only guy who was subbed off who was not gassed. It panned across the whole South African bench once the replacements had been made. Faf was looking a bit fatigued, all the forwards were fatigued, and there was Am just sitting quietly as if he had another 30 minutes in him.
He probably run more meters than any of them.
Yeah.
So he's really class, but they do need to figure that out. And I think just from a colour point of view, be on the lookout for tries. Who's going to get more tries? Is potential captain Skalk Brits going to get more maul tries, or is Sabu and Kosi going to get more tries from the wing? No disrespect to Namibia, but they're not at this level, and they also don't have the surprise factor because the Boks know them, they're neighbours.
Exactly. So it doesn't stack up well. In fact, it stacks up poorly for
very badly.
Yeah, for Namibia,
really
badly. So I expect this to be an absolute tonking, especially given that South Africa lost that game. There's just no way that it's going.
Most points in one individual game.
This could yet be the top score. This could be the biggest winning margin. It's potential for that. It's also potential for the highest score accrued. So your tournament top try scorer may appear. This is why you're right to be pointing out. Look for Spoo and Cozy and look for
Skalk Brits
on
the back of those
Maul
mauls.
Try.
There's a Skalk Brits hat-trick in
the
game.
white channels because he's awesome there too.
The
Boks by many. Is essentially.
But I did like Namibia's offensive game. I would love to see them get some plays off and some attacks. Just attack that Yankees channel, boys. Send your class winger, that right winger, down at Elton Yankees' channel. Pollard won't play. Send him at Yankees. Go. But no, come on. South Africa by lots.
That's my thought.
That is the final game on Saturday. Less of a super Saturday, but still very interesting Saturday.
I'll be watching it with green eyes.
Of course.
So should we win that game, then it will be a super Saturday.
It'll be a nice green Saturday for us. But Sunday then rolls on. Just 2 games on Sunday. Opened at 6:15 a.m. Irish time in Kumagaya Rugby Stadium, refereed by Wayne Barnes. Georgia against Uruguay.
Interesting game.
Very interesting game. The Georgians were simultaneously both very impressive and utterly disappointing against Wales in their opening day. I do think, just first point about this game, that Wayne Barnes refereeing suits them a lot more than anybody they've had since they played Scotland. Like that's kind of their ideal ref. Somebody who likes and can like a slow game, respects what goes on at the breakdown, really understands and appreciates the scrum and wants to get good scrums right and rewards dominant scrums. He's not one of these refs who's going to turn around on a scrum that's driving forward going, use it. He's not one of those guys. He does look at a scrum and he does reward you when you get dominance, and that's what Georgia are going to be looking for. Against Wales the weekend, or just the other day, they were kind of shocking defensively. They were really schoolboy poor.
No reading of the game.
It wasn't just that. Like, they had Nariashvili at the back of the line twice, covering that space. He was covering Wales had stacked the inside with 4 players in and around that 10-12 channel. And then inside 10 was being covered by Nariashvili, and they exposed it once. And then the next time they had Nariashvili and Becca Gorgadze at the back of their line out. Gorgadze shot up at the scrum half. Away he went outside of the defensive line by Gorgadze. And Nariashvili had to cover all that space and was not even halfway there by the time Josh Adams was strolling through it. And through for the second carbon copy try. Inexcusable at this level. But it was a little bit of another lesson for them in terms of just, this is tier 1 rugby. And they stood up wonderfully in the second half. They played a great game in that last 40 minutes.
They played a great half for rugby. Phenomenal. 14-all against Wales is awesome.
And dominating them physically. Wales scrambled to get a late try, but they dominated that game. They were great defensively. They brought that line speed. They did stop Wales. They were great.
That's what annoys me most, is that I've watched their first halves. I watched them get blitzkrieged by the Southern Kings in the first half a few weeks back, and then had to crawl their way back, and finally did at 60 minutes break them. But you're just like, what are you doing? Starting so slowly.
And they actually had a couple of very nice little sets, both of which resulted in frustrating kicks on the full that were both great options. There was a little nice screenplay that put Matiashvili into a bit of space. He dinked the ball in behind. There was space. The Welsh winger Josh Adams had ran up, and it was space in behind on the full from the ensuing line-out try. Likewise, these line-out tries that we're talking about. Absent Dadza put another little probing kick in behind Evans. Actually, was in front of Evans this time, just with a bit of air on it for his winger to chase. Went off the side of the boot and went in to touch on the full try. And those are the margins. There was a clever little plans from Milton Haig. you got to execute at this level. You got to execute, and you got to scramble better, obviously, as well. But if you can put yourself in the right parts of the pitch, we saw in the second half how things can go right for Georgia. The kind of picture they're trying to paint
was not good from the very first kickoff. We had Mamuka Gorgadze back in the pitch, drops the ball, scrum, a few phases later, and I think another scrum later, try.
Yeah, and these are the kind of things at a tier 2 level in rugby Europe, they do occasionally do things like that, but it's forgotten about.
Yeah.
Like they'll have that little kick into touch, but then the Spanish will just throw it not straight, and then they'll have a scrum, and then they'll be up the pitch anyway.
Yeah.
Likewise, the drop at the start. Oh, we turned it over in the scrum. We're up the pitch anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas at tier 1 level, if you want to play at this level, those errors are punished. You have to limit them.
Yeah.
And they got dealt that harsh lesson, and they're going to have to go back now and reassess before the next games. But this game against Uruguay is a chance for them to dominate physically. They are stronger up front,
much stronger
than their South American counterparts.
As I said about Uruguay, we watched them struggle with the Brazilian scrum earlier this year, which was a bit of a revelation. It was a story in that America's Championship, but the Georgian scrum is something else entirely, and the Uruguayans are all quite small. Then, that being said, if they can make it about width and pace and speed, they could catch this Georgian defence with no line speed again, and their wingers are dangerous.
Yeah, I'm telling you, those blindside wingers that Georgia don't deal with that well, or didn't against Wales, and I've actually seen against Scotland as well, around the fringes. If you have wingers coming from blind angles, even in open play, they tend not to resource that area all that strong. They just sort of number up and don't keep an eye on the guy who's from the blind side. If Uruguay can work that little variation in and grab tries, like we saw against Wales, like a really, really good Georgia performance earned them 14 points.
Yeah.
Where, for a lot of attacking sides, that's a good 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So they make it hard for themselves by playing that physical game. They will have to dominate and not fall asleep, because Uruguay can catch them if they fall asleep. And I think for their own sake, given the rough couple of months really that's been, they need to put Uruguay to bed convincingly to get back on track. If
for their World Cup to be worth anything, it means swatting Uruguay aside and bigging up a big cup final against Fiji ultimately for that third spot.
Well, they play Fiji first, so it's kind of like deal with that first. We'll think about maybe shocking Wales if we've beaten Fiji. That's the thing. They got to focus on Fiji.
Yeah.
And it starts by winning this game against a similarly minded side, if not the same size
and caliber. So Uruguay, I still expect this to be a Georgian win, and quite a dominant one, even if not on the scoreboard, because that's not their style. Even if the margin is only 10 or 15 points in the end, and that'll still be reflective of quite a strong Georgian showing.
Yes. And I would wish that we could talk about Uruguay a little more. But just unfortunately, we haven't actually got the tape on them. We're shooting this on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So we're going to see them tomorrow against Fiji, and we will know a lot more about them, just given the dynamic of this tournament and how teams show up a certain way.
Yeah.
We're going to know a lot more about them, unfortunately, after this video is up.
True.
But my suspicion is strong Georgian forwards, a little more focused performance. If they can bottle a lot of what they did in that second half vis-a-vis their defence, then they're going to make it unlivable for Uruguay, and hopefully paint the picture that they're so desperately trying to paint, of spending ages in the opposition half and grinding them down and muscling them and then slowly building up a score. And maybe a try bonus point is too much to ask for, but a dominant win is what they're looking for here.
100%. Yeah.
And good on them. I do root for them. I like a lot of what I've seen from them off the pitch.
Yes.
The problem is what's gone on us, to be honest, in recent times.
In recent times, that's definitely true. Yeah, we want to see a bit more from Georgia, and hopefully this will be an opportunity for them to do that, because I think they are a superior team to Uruguay, who are also good value for being here and playing lovely brand, but I think we'll be shocked. They'll be shocked.
Just by just about
everything. By everything. In the whole thing. Just all shocked in general.
4 games of different kinds of marauding dominance against Uruguay could be in store. But that said, I said that about Russia, and Russia showed up. So maybe Uruguay.
You never know.
Up.
Yeah. World Cups are strange
in the
places.
long grass.
Yeah.
To take out the likes of Georgia, we've seen stranger things.
Definitely.
But that game parked. There is a bigger game on Sunday.
There definitely is. Oh, there is, yes.
Indeed. 8:45 a.m. Irish time in Tokyo Stadium. Australia against Wales, and a big occasion. It needs a big performance from a referee, and they've got the best in for this one. Roman Poit. Listen, hopefully he won't be terrible. Anyway, the Poit is the referee for this one, and this game for me, even when I was predicting the tournament, the outcome of this game coloured a lot of my thinking.
It does still. That's what's interesting about this game. As much as it's a huge game for both Australia and Wales and their perspectives.
Feels like a big game for the likes of England.
Yeah.
And you know, what is that? If we're assuming that England get through their pool and France are in behind them, obviously after that win against Argentina, you know, whether it's England against Australia, England don't love that, but England against Wales is brutally physical for both sides. And then France-Australia would give you like a very colourful game that could go either way with a lot of World Cup history. But chances are Australia be feeling decent about that. And I think both Wales and Australia would want to avoid England.
Yeah.
Because first of all, neither of them would be favourites going into that game.
Sure.
And second of all, even if they do get through that game, it presents a much greater physical both challenge, test, but also just it's going to wear on them much more than a victory over France would.
Probably true. Yeah, definitely
true. And I think it's just gonna colour a lot of how this tournament goes, seeing how this game goes and where those two teams align.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's impactful. It was something we mentioned in our preview. A lot bigger deal. This is one of those pivot games that like the whole tournament kind of spins on its head once this is decided. Then
we get a much clearer picture.
Things start to come into focus in terms because we'll have two games played and then suddenly the potential quarterfinals already start to kind of form in your mind.
Yes.
So this is huge. It has huge permutations with that in mind. But then to just go and focus on the game on the level of the game itself, it's a very interesting contest. You have Six Nations champions Wales and a team that are like we're riding a bit of momentum that kind of got derailed in those warm-up games, but you don't need to place that much stock in it. They hit the ground running, put Georgia to bed in a very impressive clinical fashion, and then you have Australia who have had bit of a rough year, but they've actually kind of found something. They won that Bledisloe 1 test, found that centre partnership that was eluding them for quite a while.
And James
Beale at fullback is a bit of a revelation now, and they look. And you keep harping on in their front row. They found an excellent scrummager in Scott Seo, so they're locking really in that set piece. It's a
very, very curious picture. There are matchups everywhere, and rather than being the result of some tactical masterclass on either side, save for the odd, both sides do like their set piece strike plays, and there might be a touch of that. But I think a lot of this game is going to depend on just how these matchups go. I mean, Australia are gonna fancy attacking the Welsh scrum, but the Welsh are gonna fancy attacking the Australian lineout.
True.
Both sides on the defensive and offensive breakdown are fiends. I mean, you've got Pocock and Hooper on the Australian side, then you've got Tipperick and Alan Wynne-Jones and Ken Owens on the Welsh side.
All dogs in the breakdown.
Absolute dogs in the breakdown. Who's going to come the better of that one? I actually think on both sides of the ball, the dynamic between the two 13s is going to be really interesting.
O'Connor and Davis.
Who's going to get the better of whom? And I think it could be one of those where the guy who gets on top on offense starts getting on top on defense. Either of those could get in each other's heads.
Yeah.
I definitely think, and there is a bit of avenue there on both sides for some profit to be had.
Yeah. So
I just think all over the pitch there are the most interesting matchups, and the winners of them in the big moments are probably going to decide the game.
Yeah.
It's a mouth-watering one, really.
It really is. One thing I would say, and just on broad point, it's similar to that 13 channel that you were highlighting, is that unlike in the Six Nations when Wales' defence, was looking so sharp and was being touted as the best defence in the world, they weren't. It has to be caveated by saying like no one was testing them out wide. England and Ireland were just running into them in the tight, and
France did get some profit.
France got their tries off by going wide and attacking that 13 channel, which we kind of know outside of Davies there is space there, and like Georgia weren't going to be the ones to present that picture, but Australia might. You know, Australia like attacking that area.
They definitely will.
Have Corvetti on the wing, who's just that's fire. He's a pure finisher
in space. Try.
Yeah, that's it.
That's Corvetti.
Exactly. So they'll be wanting to play him into that game. So that'll be an interesting test for the Welsh defence to try and adapt to. They'll like obviously that tight game is not something I expect the Aussies to try and take them on in. I expect them to kind of move the pill about a bit and try and manipulate that Welsh defence before putting one-on-one matchups and backing their heads up footy in the multi-phase to try and see it through. Like they have a good eye for where a try is as a broad thing. Actually, both of these sides do. But I expect after 6 or 7 phases, if you have players of the calibre of Beale and O'Connor on the pitch, there can be calls going in. They'll recognise where the space is and they'll try and pass or kick it into it.
For sure. I'm curious to see how the Welsh attack. Are they going to try and get it in Jonathan Davis's hands? Do they like that matchup? I don't know if I love Hadley Parks running into Karevi as a matchup.
Not particularly.
Or do they keep it tight? I mean, we've touted this Welsh side as the most versatile side in world rugby. They can go many different ways. One of the areas that I was going to say, one of the areas that
Liam
I think
Williams
they have
Beale.
The damage, well, more importantly than Liam Williams, I think the matchup of Dan Biggar against Lea Lefano is one clear strength and advantage for Wales. I mean, Dan Biggar, certainly on his pomp, is a much better footballer, a much more elite 10 who can kick his goals effectively, who can claim high balls, who can put up accurate bombs. They're going to look to him, I think, as a difference maker, and they're going to look to him to direct them around the right areas of the field. Probably with bombs, as you say, putting Beale under pressure. We have seen some vulnerability.
Well, we saw that in Bledisloe too, albeit in the rain in Bledisloe too, and it was not just the high ball that was malfunctioning. I think Beale's game just escaped him for that whole game. He wasn't alone. The Aussies were kind of at sea.
Even Caleb Petty at his best is great under the ball, and I think it will be Caleb Petty. I think Reece Hodge is going to be banned.
Probably.
So I think even Caleb Petty on his worser days does get put under a bit of pressure and can lose the high ball on occasion.
Well, compared to the likes of Liam Williams, who no one in that Aussie backline, well, obviously since Folau is gone, is as imperious as Liam Williams under that high ball. And Biggar's no slouch either. He'll chip and chase his own kicks under that high ball too.
100%.
So there's threats. Those are genuine threats. Josh Adams as well, we know, can claim a high ball. Judging by the Six Nations, and their wingers aren't vertically challenged. They're quite tall and quite big. That'll be an avenue that I expect Wales to try and target. One of, like, talking about the out half advantage that maybe that Wales possess, I think in Genia,
who we think will
Wales,
play
I think will play
after
Wales.
a Nick White horror show followed by a Genia masterclass being the narrative of that Fiji game.
Pretty much, Genia is the superior scrum half of this whole of both sides. That being said, Gareth Davis had a wonderful performance himself, but I think he's a bit looser and a bit more chaotic at times than Genia, who's a bit more assured, who still has that speed when it's needed, but is also capable of slowing the game down when it's needed.
That exit kick was one of the best exits of the whole Blue tournament against Fiji. Midway through the second half, he just had a phenomenal box kick deep into the Fijian half, and I'd be looking to bring some of that, especially against those flat Welsh wingers. Who
do tend to drift up for sure.
But from Lea Lefano, you're not going to get that accurate a kicking game. Whether Lea Lefano plays or not is even a question mark, given the fact that he was
the Aussie commentators were loving what they were seeing from Tamua off the bench.
I wasn't particularly.
I know you're not a Tamua fan.
I haven't.
No.
I would go for Foley over Tamua, frankly.
But it doesn't seem like that's the pecking order at the moment.
No, Foley seems gone. Just the way it goes. But I do think ultimately those battles that I talked about, the first, like, both of these sides value the work that they do at the breakdown. Who wins those battles? I mean, who gets more plays off? The likes of Alan Wynne-Jones.
Is he stealing lineouts? Because the Aussies love an offensive maul.
They do.
If they can be disrupted at lineout time, though, there's no option for one.
It goes away. It goes away, and their lineout was a bit dodgy. If Wales can get on top there, likewise, can Wales hold on in the scrum the way the Wallabies will be trying to hold on in the lineouts, or will the Wallabies get on top of them there? Huge battles. And then I think just the carrying error around the fringes. I mean, we've seen the likes of Rodda, Coleman, and Rory Arnold looking extremely physical and awesome against sides that they're better Argentina, Fiji the other week. They were great. Adam Coleman off the bench made a huge impact. And then we've seen them against the likes of Brodie Retallick and the likes of Evan Etzebeth, and they've looked like just off the level. And Wales's locks, you've got Alan Wynne-Jones and Jake Ball, very good form. Alan Wynne is probably the best all-round lock, but isn't quite as physical as those guys I mentioned. Like, mind you,
Ball had a very physical showing against Georgia. He was asked to do a lot of that work and stood up.
Well, there you go. And what is the answer to that question of how those Wallabies look at this level, which feels like kind of their level? Can they get some plays off? Can they get a bit of dominance around the fringes and provide quick ball? That's going to be a huge factor.
Sure.
And then likewise, I think that 13 battle is one to watch. Sometimes the games don't go that way then when I say it, but I think both sides will look to attack each other in that channel,
Yeah.
and who can get the plays off against each other could be massive.
Yeah.
And whether, like, if you get Jay Davis
Sure.
bumping off O'Connor,
Jay Davis versus O'Connor is box office in a million different ways.
It is.
They're two
Yeah.
fine players, and it's just to see them go head to head with, like, this is a great game. It is. There are a few intangibles.
Game.
The fact, like, Wales got their first ever win against first win in around 10 years.
First ever win
against Aussie. Could you imagine? But first win in a significant chunk of time. It was around 10 years. Just last year, and it was a 9-6 ground out win in the Millennium Stadium.
Yeah, these games take such different pictures, don't
every
they?
Time they're different. Yeah. They're two.
But
they're
match well matched. It's
and
crazy.
At the same time, barring that one, which is a monkey off their back as far as Gatland and this Wales side is concerned, the Aussies have very many living memories of just beating Wales, and they'll be going into this with an attitude of, yeah, we just beat Wales, which can sometimes serve them very well.
I don't know if they will. They'll definitely be like thinking about it. It's a tough game.
It's their toughest game of the thing, but they'll definitely be backing themselves to get it done.
Yeah.
They'll also be probably kind of thinking that they have a bit of a psychological edge over their history. I know Wales will probably be going like, oh yeah, we got that monkey off our back last time, and now we can go on. We should have beaten them the previous few times anyway, and that kind of stuff. Whereas the Aussies will have that flip side of going like, we always manage to get it done more often than against Wales.
It could just be that it will come down to a play from somebody, more than likely, just who's going to make that play. But we mentioned it already, but it does deserve to be mentioned again, is that the difference between Australia of this whole cycle and that previous cycle and this Australia that's going to World Cup, the one biggest difference is that they are vulnerable from the high ball, where they never used to be. They used to be bulletproof because of Israel Folau, and now they are just very not. And that is, for the Northern Hemisphere sides,
that's a
real angle to go at them. And that could be decisive.
They're also just not quite in terms of depth of squad. They're not quite at the level they would have been at last World Cup, and even
but their first 15 is
their first 15
similar.
As always is a world class team capable of beating the best teams in the world. But it's behind that there's not as much quality as there has been in years gone by. That being said, I really love their style of play. I think it's conducive to World Cups. I think that the fact that they go to try and grab tries just serves them well. I mean, it's a less attritional way of going about your business, and they have an instinct for it. So, yeah, I love both of these teams, and you're right in saying what happens here does colour the rest. It sprinkles out and ripples out across the whole tournament.
Everybody will be watching.
Affects England's campaign. It affects France's campaign.
Yeah. And even going forward, it affects the dynamic of a semi-final against, like, if England have to play Wales, that's just going to be, as always, that the history of those teams is just going to be a brutally physical encounter, and I think would benefit the prospective semi-final opponent, which would be the All Blacks. I think the All Blacks might be thinking, give England Wales in that quarter-final and we'll beat the Remains.
Whoever limps out of there.
Indeed. And then from Ireland's perspective, if Wales don't end up playing in that game, if Wales end up topping their pool, Ireland, if they make it past their quarter-final, are set up to play Wales, which they hate. Big games against Wales are a nightmare for Ireland.
Especially having just won the biggest game of your history. If that's what's happened, then we're probably going to lose to Wales.
They would much rather play. Ireland, genuinely, and don't get offended by this, Australians, it's a matchup thing. Ireland would genuinely much rather play Australia than Wales in a World Cup semi-final.
Probably true. Definitely
so all of that is affected by this game. I think it's going to have a massive impact on the tournament. And I don't know, can you call it? I can't call it.
Yeah, well, I called it prior in my preview, and I said Oz. I'm flipping. It's a flip of a coin thing. Like, both have many avenues to success. Both are superior to each other in certain aspects and inferior in others. The matchup is great. I'm going to stick with Australia as a prediction just on historical precedent alone. Because I can't. I'm unsure. I'm pretty much. It's a toss of a coin in this one. I think if you play it 100 times, it's close to 50 wins each.
It's crazy.
Like, they're two awesome sides, and I expect awesome footy. And I expect Australia to win by about 6.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a narrow Australian win as well, with a crucial James O'Connor try.
Just a colour to go in with your. Yeah,
I don't know. I think I like the cut of his jib.
No, I definitely do. Yeah, he's matured into a wonderful player and plays lovely.
He's just had some bod-esque touches.
He does. His offloading game is great, and it's what Australia need. They need distributors in the back line and wide distributors, which is what he's providing.
So there you go.
Yeah,
but that's it.
It's going to apologies to our Welsh subs who are. I know.
It could go either way.
We could have egg on our face when Wales blow Australia away.
I expect and hope for the Welsh fans to be coming into this video post glorious Wallaby victory.
Yeah, if you're watching this after beating the Wallabies, you can feel free to leave your comment below to rub our noses in it. But in the meantime, I'll say Oz.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to round up the show with the game that is on Monday next.
Yeah.
This is at 11:15 in the Kobe Misaki Stadium in Kobe City. Refereed by Pascal Gozer. Scotland against Samoa. It's
good game.
It's an absolute blessing for the Scots. It is an absolute blessing that they've had 8 days to recover from that opening day.
That is true.
Shellacking at the hands of Ireland. I mean, they were shocked is an understatement. John Barclay, your captain and talisman, was vomiting on the field after 30 minutes of action, and the rest of the team were similar. They were stunned by the conditions. They were all over the place, and Ireland at their best are such a physical team as well. They just couldn't deal with any of it for a minute, not remotely.
Especially going behind to Ireland, who love front running.
But even just they were slow and cumbersome in their offence, and the Irish line speed just got up, and then Finn Russell was under pressure, and he was doing flounder-some things instead of just setting.
He did get hit multiple times.
Yep.
Like Bundyaki, I think, put in 3 or 4 hits on him before going off, and then Chris Farrell came in and put in more than that. So I'm thinking just from the inside centre channel, Finn got hit around close to 10 times. Which is going to affect that offence. And then Stewie Hogg, similarly, I think it was Gary Ringrose for the most part, was tasked with shutting his access to the wide channels out from 13, and he did that mostly successfully. They were caught flat-footed. They were nowhere near the pace of the game, and even in the tight, McAnally lost pretty much every contact. I think he was in so many tackles, and he's a talisman for them. They need him stepping up. And strange calls like Fraser Brown spending 20 odd minutes on the maybe more. I think it was 30 or 40
he played
minutes.
7 for ages instead of I can't name escapes me. Blade Thompson, that's who it was. Blade Thompson sat on the bench while that was going on. And it was and
he looked gassed after being on for 10 minutes in the back row. It was suddenly Fraser Brown was gone, and then McAnally has to stay on. It was all just crazy stuff from Scotland's perspective. Really, I didn't expect it. I was grateful for it from an Irish perspective. We were seeing. We were getting that Scott sexual vibe of really fearing the Finn Russell floaty pass out to the wide channels to cut off our blitz defence or something. Didn't see
a second of it. Didn't see a second of it, and it reminded me we have been making, and you only sort of Irish rugby fans will really be in the head of this, but we have been ever since Scotland sort of went from being utterly garbage to being very capable attacking side. We have sort of been painting the picture of them as a similar body to Eddie O'Sullivan's Ireland side, which a lot of you wouldn't be familiar with, but he would have been in charge in Ireland from about 2003 through 2008. And in that period, Ireland played some lovely rugby, really up to 2 or 3 levels. Obviously, they had the likes of O'Driscoll. They had a wonderful attacking backline. And like Scotland do now, in Stuart Hogg, they have one of the best players in the world, and Finn Russell on his day, superb out half. And they loved to run the football, but they always just fell short. They never quite won anything.
They never quite had a dominant scrum. They could only ever hope for parity at scrum time, and then we'll play some football.
Exactly. But they had some great wins. They had some magnificent days, some big scalps over England, the old enemy. It's taken a similar pattern, and they were a great team that I remember with fondness. But how that team rounded up was with the mother of all disasters in a World Cup, where they were all over the place, badly conditioned, got nearly run over by Georgia, and then completely run through by France and Argentina, and then go home, lads. And that was a side that had been bigging themselves up as contenders, and I see parallels to that team still through this side. And the pictures of them looking shocked and gassed and all over the place.
And getting sick. That's one of the more shocking things I've seen at the World Cup. Is Barkley getting sick at 30 minutes. I'm what is that?
Exactly. And just all over them, it felt and looked very similar. So listen, they have had an 8-day break. They're going to be playing a Samoa side that stuttered against Russia, that do have some threats. But one of them in Ray Lilo is likely to have been, by the time this video is up, even probably sighted and gone. Likewise, I think their hooker is going to be gone as well because of
Similar incident.
Two high shots that should have been reds.
It was let's all smash Artemiev Day from the Samoans' point of view.
And they also lost Amosa through injury. So they're a depleted Samoa side that didn't look particularly good, especially in the contact. It is a chance for Scotland to steady the ship.
Sure.
To get on top. I would love to see George Horne in at scrum half.
Yeah, for that pace. Obviously they've lost Ali Price to injury, and he was kind of their pace option to kind of speed the game up once Laidlaw's off. I think against Samoa you want to start with nippiness, and George Horne impresses me. I really like it.
Yeah, I like his tracking runs. I like the way he's, especially I think they should take, first of all, that goofball dude Duncan Taylor out of the team and get Chris Harris, who's a really good centre, into the team. Scottish fans have been trying to convince me of Duncan Taylor for quite a while, and I remain unconvinced.
I'm getting close to convinced, but it's not in the direction that they're pulling me. I'm pretty convinced that he's a club level player.
Where Harris has been nothing but great. They should throw Harris in there with Johnson, and that gives you two very fundamental direct centres running,
which shores up one of their main defensive weaknesses from the years gone by, when it was Hugh Jones and sometimes Hugh Jones with Finn and Horne in there, and it was just all very frail and brittle in the centres. This is a bit more fundamental. Sam Johnson is a revelation in 12.
Yes.
He's really solid.
He's still really great.
He is. And he wasn't the worst of them against Ireland, to be honest. He made his tackles.
So having those guys in there running hard lines, but then what you need to do is get guys running good tracking lines off them, and George Horne is great for that. They need to be taking their tries, and they need to stop. They've been flirting with the idea of moving away from the offensive rugby that they've been playing, and they haven't got the talent to do it. They haven't got the ability to play a forward game against any of the tight sides. They have to play quickly. That's what they're talking about. We want to be the quickest side in world rugby. Well, then with the greatest respect, what's Laidlaw doing in the 9 jersey? If you want to be the quickest team in world rugby, you're struggling for an identity here.
Well, it's true. If you're going to tell me you're the quickest team in world rugby, you're not the quickest team in the pool. Japan are.
Well, yeah, but they've got to get there. Yeah, they've got to play that rugby that suits the eye of Finn and Hogg, who are their two main men. Yeah, and that's what they've got to do against what will be a tricky enough Samoa outfit. Yeah,
well, if they're a bit loose in their offense like that, you can expect the likes of Leua or
certainly Leua has been very
guy can come. Yeah, he'll make some plays on either side of the ball, because they'll bring some line speed. Will the Samoans, if they're fancying this at all, and if they sniff that bit of weakness or disjointedness which could recur from Scotland, like that, if you're going to hark back to that Ireland 07 parallel, like there was always that little bit of hope. Like it started off with a stuttering display against, I think, was it Namibia, where they didn't win by anywhere near enough, but it was always like, oh, we'll have the turnaround and we'll go again, and it just got worse and worse and worse.
It's just about got over the line against both of the tier 2 sides, then had a game against France, which they got stuffed, but then a game against Argentina, and right to the last day, despite it being a complete disaster, they were in it. Which could be the narrative for Scotland here. But they have every chance to put this Samoa team away, purely because I don't know that Samoa, based on what I saw today, I mean, they have plays in them. Leo is a very, very sharp operator, so too is Nana Williams. But they didn't look good against Russia. No. Like those back rows who had impressed me so, TJ Ioane and Chris Vui, just looking completely off the pace and getting blasted back by those big Russians who were in the mood. Wasn't a particularly good picture. Now they probably can go to another level.
They definitely can. I've seen them. I've seen Samoa at another level, and I've seen a Samoa with mostly those players. I think they should switch up the 10 jersey from Samoa's point of view.
Yeah, 2CPC was all over the place, and now is not the time for conservatism, Samoan coaches. I mean,
like you said, conservatism. I don't know if that even explains
but that's what it feels
like.
It's not. We're going to take out this young kid, say Uteni, because he might be a little green in the gills, and we're going to get in our experienced man, the 37-year-old, completely out of the game 2CPC, who's just going to miss kicks and then be a passenger.
And he very nearly coughed up a try from an exit play as well. That was horrendous.
They've got to get Sayateni back in there and get a bit of youth and vigour back into the team. I would move Alapali Leua to the centre.
I know,
and attack Scotland through the middle. They may not have Lilo to partner with him, but sure, look, that's what happens when you smash people in the head like that.
Yes.
But I think they do have definitely good offensive plays in them. But from Scotland's perspective, they can be got at.
Yes, they can. If their set piece gets got at, which is what was missing most from Scotland's performance, as well as the physicality or whatever. It's just that irksome combativeness that they bring to things like defensive mauls, things like defensive breakdowns. They just try and make things difficult when they're on their game. And
Barkley's a huge doer of that. He was all over the place.
Exactly.
He was in his own little world of stomach aches and misery.
So that was obviously a concern from conditioning point of view, but that's what, when Scotland are at their best, that's what they bring. It's not necessarily raw physicality, but it is wiliness and combativeness and awkwardness to play. Like when Scotland are at their best, they're just an unpleasant team to play. Because as much as they have threats out wide, their pack tend to be niggly and combative. And when you bring that kind of game to Samoa, who can get disjointed in the pack very quickly, that'll be what they're looking to do, is be that combative side and pick them apart.
Magnus Bradbury's flying out. Maybe it's going to be a week too soon for him, but if they can get him out there,
he's a big ball carrier.
He's a guy I wouldn't mind seeing. And then you wouldn't mind seeing Ben Toulis either, because I wasn't impressed with Johnny Gray.
No, I thought Gray was all over the place. And I like Toulis Gilchrist. For me, is Scotland's best.
It's got that Edinburgh vibe. They vibe off each other.
And they're both workhorses in that kind of fashion. They're not the most out and out physical locks, but they put themselves about for the 8 minutes.
They win contacts because they move with a bit of speed and subtlety, so they can win contacts, certainly against the Samoans. And then just giving Finn nice clean offensive ball, Samoa will bring nowhere near the kind of line speed that Ireland brought.
No.
They will have time to pick their passes and to pick Samoa apart, and that is what I hope and expect that they'll do. But there is a huge question mark thrown up after that opening day.
Definitely.
And Samoa, for all of their faults, like I didn't think they were great against Russia.
Their attack's still lovely when it gets going.
Gorgeous. Leua in particular is on song, and an on song Leua is a threat to any man.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
and then similarly, Tim Nanai-Williams from fullback. I think I agree with you. Sayutani impressed me enough in the PNC. 2CPC convinced me as well in the game. The performance just gone that. It's time for some youth, and Sayutani looks like a very well balanced 10. Looks kind of similar to Tamora, in fact, in terms of he plays a bit of kicking game, but he likes to run the pill bag. Good passer of a ball, reads the game pretty well. I would love to see that little combination come in and see some Samoan attack, which is very hard to stop when they get in flow.
It is indeed.
From Scotland's point of view, it'll be about achieving their own flow and preventing Samoa from getting theirs, and hopefully the class showing in the end from Scotland's point of view, and they'll put a bit of scoreboard pressure and get a bit of separation from Samoa, because they really need some confidence to take into these next few games, and this is a good chance for them to restore some of that.
They do. And listen, that is us. That goes through us, takes us through round 2 through Monday the 30th of September, and then the following games. There's a day off on the first day of October, and they'll be back in on the 2nd on Wednesday, and hopefully we will be back in time to preview those games. We may well, whether time dependent, we won't be able to get it to do it in the weekdays anyway, but we may well on one of the weekends, if we can arrange the time, do some sort of live stream or some sort of update video for you guys. We are trying our damnedest in between work hours to get as much Rugby World Cup content out to you guys as we can, and we do appreciate and love all the new subs and comments. It has been very enjoyable to read and see all those people enjoying our stuff, so happy days. We'll be back to you again next week, when there will have been more dramatics, more colour, more enjoyable rugby than we could ever want or hope to see in just a week of action.
It's time. It's World Cup time, baby. It's absolutely happening. It is a festival of rugby. We build it as such, and now the rugby keeps rolling.
The rugby keeps rolling, and another few dramatic games in the week to come. In particular, that Australia-Wales game, which we're looking forward to, and we'll be watching with keen eyes to see what happens in that one. But for the meantime, I think that's us.
So again, please like, subscribe, share, comment mainly down below, and ring the bell as well, so you know when our little preview vids, our individual vids, are going up. But in the meantime, we'll see you next time.
We will, of course. Bye.
Right, you're up.
I am indeed.
Can you nail it?
I don't think so. I didn't the last time.
No, he pulls it left. That's crooked in, man.
Yeah.
My scrum.
Nearly.
Yeah.
You shifted it a little. We'll take it.
The line out's dodgy.